Before we start, I'd like to mention Riot graciously gifted me a Steam code allowing me to play this game for free 2 hours after I already started streaming it. So instead of letting the code rot away in my email, I'm giving it away to you guys. Simply leave a comment down below explaining what you were excited about for Mageseeker, maybe you've already played it, what'd you think about it, that kind of stuff. And in 5 days time, I'll pick a random winner. Said winner's name will be found in the pinned comment of this video, so don't trust any of them Telegram bots, alright? Giveaway segment over, onto the actual video. It's finally here! That doesn't sound quite right. From announcement to trailers to release, it was only about a 2-month window, but Mageseeker!
It's pretty good.
The immediate follow-up to the Lux comic back in 2019, Mageseeker has apparently been in development since its titular character Sylas was concepted for League of Legends. And while this video was initially meant to be a review of the game itself, I realized partway through editing that what I really wanted to talk about in this game wasn't the gameplay, or the art style, or the fact that they misspelled Cataclysm. No, what I think this game most excels at, much like the Ruined King before it, is its world building and character development. Demacia as a region has been frozen in place for some time now, with only small snippets here or there like Galio's cloning factory in Legends of Runeterra or at the end of the Warriors cinematic. But after Sylas broke free and started up his mage rebellion, nothing really happened. And that's highly likely because narrative in the League universe is only ever really pushed forward by random spurts of Legends of Runeterra content or the release of a new champion in League of Legends.
Meow!
And unfortunately, the last new Demacian champion in League of Legends we got was Sylas. It's thanks to Sylas, though, that Demacia received as much world building as it did, carving out the Mageseeker Order and showing just how vile the supposedly great city is under the surface, further deviating away from the very old lore that Noxus are the clear and cut bad guys, while Demacia are the clear and cut good guys. But for Sylas himself, yeah, for a champion at the center of all of it, none of the pieces quite fell into place, something I was hoping would be fixed in Mageseeker, and well, was it? Well, let's see. I suppose I should probably start off with what are Sylas' problems in the first place. Well, it was designed, of course, for a guy chained up and rotting in prison for most of his life, his skin's looking pretty silky smooth and well fed. However, this is something that I knew wouldn't be addressed. What I was hoping would be addressed is my bigger issue, his characterization. Because Sylas is a victim, a mage inducted into the Mageseeker Order when he was only a child, forced to use his powers to snuff out other mages so they may meet a similar fate to him, or worse. Upon discovering a fellow mage child and attempting to save her life, he loses control of his powers, killing both her and several Mageseekers. Deemed the most dangerous man in Demacia, he is in prison for life, but after 15 years in prison, he befriends Luxana Crownguard, not only one of the most high-ranking elites in Demacia, but secretly one of the most powerful mages the city has ever seen. But when their mingling is discovered, Sylas is sentenced to public execution. However, when Lux runs up to save him and give him a hug, man, he was able to channel her power, killing everyone in the vicinity except for her. Seeking to kill the man in charge, then King Jarvan III, Sylas was astounded to discover the king had already been murdered, the killer of which would be revealed in a later comic. But now fleeing Demacia, blamed as Jarvan's killer, Sylas attempts to band together a mage rebellion to take down the great city, the Mageseeker Order, and reclaim the land for mages everywhere. Now, is this a bad origin?
Absolutely not.
In fact, it's in my upper echelon of my favorite champion origin stories in the game, perfectly teaching us about the true Demacia that lay hidden under the surface all this time. But things being hidden under the surface is where the problems start to arise. Because you would think the leader of the rebel force with the end goal of freeing the oppressed people of this nation would be the hero of the story, right? Nope. Sylas isn't a hero, or even an anti-hero. He's the villain. Now, I should clarify I wasn't expecting him to be a truly heroic figure. Of course, someone who's endured hardship and torture under obvious visible oppressors almost their entire life isn't going to be the most mentally stable person in the world, but it makes the message of the story confusing. We empathize with Sylas' backstory and the oppression of the mages, so to any logical person, if you're gonna pick a side here, the mages are the obvious pick. And yet their leader and idol is portrayed as a corrupt,
join me or die!
monstrous,
I will be the monster they think I am.
bloodthirsty,
They locked up a boy, but let loose a killer.
murderer.
A murder of crows. You know, for murder.
Lux trusted Sylas, now Demacians are dead. You know why that became a meme? Because that is such an oversimplification of his backstory, it's laughable. What should be a misunderstood anti-hero is warped into a cartoonishly vile antagonist masquerading his own self-interests with the illusion of a rebellion. He doesn't really care about the mages, he cares mostly about himself. Mageseeker, non-mage, mage that won't fight by his side, they all got in his way and they all die as as a result. Manipulation, lying, betrayal, selfishness, violence-prone, killer. These are all traits at the forefront of Sylas's character, and coincidentally, they are all closely associated with villains. Now, could it be possible to make Sylas a compelling villain? Yeah, sure, we've seen it before. Villains with righteous endgames but horrific methods of reaching said goals. But to make a compelling antagonist, you need to have an equally compelling protagonist. And unfortunately, if Sylas is the designated villain, then by default that makes Demacia the heroes. And I'm sorry, but no, that's not happening. Even playing the both sides argument doesn't work here, cause yes, while Sylas is clearly villainous, Demacia and its Mageseekers have done and are doing far worse. Like, seriously, dude, the whole time I was playing through Mageseeker, all I could think of was Noxus, and perhaps I treated you too harshly. It's hard forcing an argument where the idea is that there is good and evil on both sides. And sure, yeah, that has proven to be an effective storytelling device before. But on the Demacian side, the only droplet of good we see is Lux, and she completely dissociates from Demacia. So who are we left with? Jarvan? Fuck no, that man's drowning in bigotry. Garen? I don't think his brain has even finished processing what prejudice even means. Xin? We can't have a both sides story here because one side is so clearly in the wrong. Yet on what should be the side we should obviously be rooting for, its leader is warped into this bloodthirsty, irrational demagogue in a vain attempt to justify the idea that, ooh, well, this guy's clearly a bad guy, so who can really tell who the real villains are here? And it's been stuck like that for 4 goddamn years. That is why Sylas's characterization is so frustrating. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Now that we're 7 minutes in, we can finally talk about the actual game in the title of this video. It should be obvious as well, I will be delving into spoilers for Mageseeker since a lot of what happens in the story is necessary for this conversation. So if you haven't played Mageseeker yet, first of all, what are you doing? Go play it now! Secondly, come back to this part of the video once you've gotten to experience this excellent story for yourself. Mageseeker starts us off at the tail end of the Lux comic. Sylas has just broken free, King Jarvan III is dead, and Lux has escaped with her band of mages. At this moment, this is the same Sylas we know from League. All he cares about at this moment is killing every non-mage Demacian in front of him, no matter their rank or status, Mageseeker or not. If not for the intervention of his old mentor Killian, Garen surely would have died right at the beginning of the game. I mean, come on guys, I would have beaten him on the first try. I didn't die to Morgana 20 times on normal difficulty. I have no idea what you're talking about. I'm the greatest gamer of all time. But he makes his great escape into the wilderness of Demacia, joining the Mage Rebellion and meeting many new faces along the way. Leilani, Kara, Gideon, who's a different person from Killian, Yops, Ruko, Aiden, and so forth. League of Legends didn't have this advantage of setting up all these secondary characters for Sylas to interact with since, like I said, usually if a character is introduced, it's because they're meant to become a champion in the future. But here we can explore that avenue, and in fact, each of these NPCs serve a specific function to Sylas's narrative. They all represent different aspects of Sylas's personality and motivations, his conscience made manifest, so to speak. We see this especially with Leilani, urging Sylas not to fight for vengeance but to protect the people he cares about. But that's the thing, at this point in the story, he doesn't have any people he cares about. Just like in the stories we had before, Sylas at the beginning of Mageseeker is a one-track-minded, selfish individual, more focused on his own personal vendettas than actually, you know, doing what he says his rebellion is supposed to be about. It's why later on Morgana refuses to give him her blessing. She can see right through his facade. Mageseeker doesn't fix this part of Sylas's character by retconning it out of existence. It shows that he still very much acts this way while openly mocking it. We as the viewer understand immediately that Sylas is fighting for the right cause, but for the wrong reasons. Something he learns over the course of the game. We learn through Rain and her fear magic that Sylas, even after all these years, deeply regrets what he did the day he accidentally killed that child. That he never wanted to be a killer, and that he's terrified that he scared away his only friend Wisteria. His betrayal, as she sees it, turning her into an even bigger monster than he had become. We see in Leilani, both through her leadership and her sacrifice, that there's more to the rebellion than petty revenge. That senseless death is inevitable through Sylas's methods. We explore through Lux and her mage group that Sylas's supposed vision of peace can be accomplished. His dissatisfaction with Lux's unwillingness to fight, proving that he doesn't really want peace. He wants to kill! The entire game is built around challenging Sylas' motivations, to learn to empathize with his fellow mages, to take down those that deserve it, yes, but for a cause beyond his own self-interests. Leilani's sacrifice especially strikes a chord with his character. Walking around the refugee camp after this event, seeing just how lost and defeated the rebellion is without their leader, how Leilani gave them hope for a brighter future. She wasn't just a leader to them, she was family, someone who cared for them and protected them. If Sylas was still the same person he was at the beginning of Mageseeker, he would have just shrugged this off as the rebel forces being too weak to fight. They aren't strong enough to fight for his, I mean their cause. But now at this point of the story, after making so many allies, seeing all the hardships and heartaches they've gone through, and through his own careless desire for revenge, he lost someone he'd called a friend twice. He has an epiphany. He becomes the leader they need. Still driven to take down those that wronged him, but in the heat of the moment, he's more concerned with the safety of his people. He even goes so far as to essentially adopt Rain at the end of the game, someone whom for the majority of her screen time he had considered an enemy. Because now he sees that she's just like him. She's a victim too. He learned compassion. And can we just admit for a second how brilliant the inclusion of Morgana and Kale are to this story? The fact that only after Sylas learns to truly fight for the cause he boasts about, to care for his fellow mage, to understand compassion for others, and maybe, just maybe, learn to forgive as well. Except Hesbeth, fuck Hesbeth, only then does he receive Morgana's blessing. And on the opposite end, Wisteria wields what I can only assume is Kale's power in the game's final showdown. Completely consumed by the ideology of upholding the law no matter how brutal it may be, unable to see how hypocritical she has become, you know, just like how Kale is. At the start of Mageseeker, Sylas would have been a perfect vessel for Kale's power, consumed by a desire for vengeance and righting the wrongs of the past by any means necessary. But especially now, seeing what that way of thinking has done to Wisteria, someone he used to call a friend, that's the moment when Sylas realizes he has a greater purpose to this cause. He is the figurehead of the Mage Rebellion and an inspiration to mages everywhere. And to him now, that finally actually means something. I like to imagine this was always the plan for Sylas, to release him as a broken mess of a character with the intention of completing his character arc in Mageseeker later down the line, because, you know, they were both concepted at the same time. If that's the case, then bravo, Riot Forge, for thinking well ahead of time, but also fuck you for making me hate this character for 4 goddamn years. It's fine though, at least his gameplay will never not be hateable. I have no idea what the future holds for Sylas. Oddly enough, despite his character arc in Mageseeker, by the end, he still functions as Demacia's villain, with the new goal of killing the remainder of the Jarvan bloodline, as he believes as long as there's a monarch in charge, things won't ever really change for the better. And while Sylas doesn't know Jarvan has dismantled the Mageseekers completely, I wouldn't really trust Jarvan to uphold that new way of thinking either, as really he only did it because his girlfriend dumped him. Still, even if we have to return to the status quo by the end, I cannot deny just how much this game did for Sylas as a character. He is no longer a one-note, deplorable villain. He is the proper, morally gray anti-hero he was always meant to be. But as always, those are just my silly, stupid opinions. What did you fellas think of Mageseeker? Did you like it? Did you not? You don't have a lot of time to reminisce about it because the next Riot Forge game Convergence releases tomorrow? So I guess then, until next time, fellas, I'll see you in the next video. Also, for Mageseeker 2, can we get an actual Nocturne boss fight, please? Thank you.